I can't tell you how many questions I get about self-sabotage when it comes to healthy eating. We feel like we do so well all day or all week or for a few weeks or even a few months, but then eventually we end up going right back to our old habits and patterns, and it feels like we're taking one step forward and 3 steps back. And the truth of the matter is that despite the fact that we've landed a man on the moon, invented smartphones, our brains are still very much wired the way we were back when we were cavemen. And because of that fact, our brains tend to live by a very simple mission statement. You know how big companies have a mission statement, a statement that allows everyone who works within the company to sort of know the direction and the values that the company holds? Well, your brain, your caveman brain, has a mission statement. And that mission statement is to avoid pain, seek pleasure, and do it by expending as little energy as possible. And every time we try to go against this mission statement, or we try to go against the way our brain is naturally wired, we tend to lose. My name is Sarah Best, and I'm a nutritionist, but my clients like to joke that I'm the nutritionist who never talks about food. And that's because my work is not so much around telling you what you should eat or what you shouldn't eat. I feel like for the most part, you already know that. My work is really around helping you understand why it's so hard to stay consistent, why it's so hard to stay on track with the healthy choices that we want to make, and how you can really train your brain to reprogram and rewire those old habits and patterns that keep sabotaging you so that the healthy choices start to feel a whole lot easier. So back to self-sabotage. As I said, every time we go against this natural mission statement that your brain has, avoid pain, seek pleasure, and do it by expending as little energy as possible, every time we go against that, we tend to fail. And very often the messages we've been told, the advice we've been given sets us up to go against that natural wiring. So approaches like deprivation, right? You can't eat this, can't eat that, or guilt, beating yourself up, shame, the mean voice, as I like to call it. These approaches, these techniques set us up for failure because what they do is they trigger our brain, they register in our brain as pain. And our brains, remember, have a mission statement that has us wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure and do it as easily as possible. So instead of going back to repeating old techniques, old strategies like deprivation, like beating yourself up, better to start working with your brain's natural wiring. Start working with your brain's mission statement, right? Your brain wants to avoid pain and seek pleasure. So what we need to do is we need to find a way to make the healthy choices that we want to make start to feel like pleasure, start to feel like a reward instead of something we have to do or should do, right? So there's a couple of ways you can do this. One is to start imagining, start thinking about what is the bigger picture here? What is the beautiful and compelling vision that you have for the healthy lifestyle that you want to live, the healthy body that you want to inhabit, right? We spend a lot of time when we're thinking about improving our health and our lifestyle, we spend a lot of time thinking about what we don't want. I don't want to feel so heavy. I don't want to have no energy. I don't want for it to all feel so hard. But your brain, remember, is motivated by pleasure, right? It wants to avoid pain and seek pleasure. So if we keep focusing on the negative and all the things we don't want, it tends to be counterproductive. So instead, we want to think about creating a story, creating a narrative, imagining how those healthy choices we want to make are going to bring us closer to this beautiful and compelling vision for this healthy lifestyle we want to have. You know, I think of this as like literally creating like an imaginary world and thinking about what success would really look and feel like for you. Who would you be? What would you be able to do? How would your life be different? How would you carry yourself? How would you show up in a room? What impact would you have, right? How would you inspire other people? So start thinking about that, right? And start thinking then about how the healthy choices that you're trying to make day to day bring you closer to that, right? They align with that. They move you in that direction. And suddenly that starts to, for your brain, which is your old caveman brain, wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure, suddenly that starts to look like pleasure. Suddenly that starts to look attractive. So think about that as step one. Second, I want you to think about when you do have a win, when you do make a good choice, I want you to really take a moment and absorb how good it feels. Absorb the fact that you feel proud of yourself, that you feel in control, that you feel like you are making good choices for yourself and really nourishing, honoring, loving your body, right? We tend to gloss over the good choices we make and really focus on the negative. And again, what that does is it just triggers more reward-seeking behavior because your brain wants to avoid pain. So if we instead take a moment to really absorb how good it feels to make a good choice, and this is how you start to train your brain that making a good choice feels good. Making a good choice makes me feel proud. It makes me feel in control. It makes me feel happy and grounded and aligned with this bigger vision for myself. These little techniques are how you start to do that rewiring work, that reprogramming in your work, that reprogramming work in your brain to start to literally change the way your brain thinks about food, responds to food, uses food. Okay? So start thinking about this as you go about your day and as you're making choices around food. Start thinking about how you can more closely work with your brain's wiring instead of against it. So instead of deprivation and guilt and beating yourself up, things that just register in your brain as pain and trigger it to reward-seeking behavior, instead start thinking about how you can reframe the healthy choices as a reward, as pleasure, okay? So think about that big vision you're creating first, and then also think about really taking the time to absorb how good it feels to make a healthy choice. I hope that's helpful. I would love to hear how this works for you. So if you give it a try, please let me know what your experience is like. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out. Don't hesitate. I'm here to help.